If you've been wondering how you can get unstuck and find the courage to leave your 9 to 5 job and create a life of freedom, this episode of the Remote CEO Life podcast is going to be your ultimate inspiration. Today, I'm joined by Chandni Arora, who is the founder of Inner Calling Coaching. She is a mindset coach and master NLP practitioner and spent 19 years working in a multi-six-figure corporate career whilst raising 2 children before bravely stepping away to follow her true calling, which was helping women unlock their self-confidence, worth, and clarity to build lives they truly own. Shandni's story resonated with me so much because I also quit my corporate 9 to 5 to pursue my own calling, which at the time, in all honesty, I didn't know what that calling was going to be. But I did know that I wanted to create more freedom in my life, which I have absolutely done over the past 5 years, working as a business coach and consultant. As you can see, I live here in Thailand, and it's been quite a journey for me to get here. It takes a lot of courage to leave a career that you know, and in some ways it's become your identity. For example, I was a fashion buyer for 11 years. My most recent job was at Burberry. I managed a £380 million business. That was all I'd really known how to do since I started my career at the age of 17. So I really had to learn a new narrative when I went into the world of entrepreneurship and figure out how to step into this new season of my life, specifically shifting my mindset to believe that this life was possible for me, to believe that I could create the programs that I wanted to create. So I had to go through quite a lot of subconscious limiting belief reprogramming in order to me to get the confidence to create my group program, the Freedom Model Method, for example, and feel strong enough in my abilities to guide people on their own journey from 9 to 5 up to freedom seeker, which is what I cover in that course. And this conversation was so great chatting to Shandni, as she's been through a very similar transition to me. And in this episode, she shared so many great insights about how she transitioned from her corporate life to coach and why that shifted her definition of success. She definitely had to go on her own journey and shift out of her own limiting beliefs, but she also went through the trainings in order to help other people do that as well. So she's going to talk us through some of the mindset shifts that helped her make that leap and what you can do also in order to reclaim your power and your freedom and create an online business that works for you and the lifestyle that you want to live. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That is why we're creating freedom. That is something that I truly stand for, is that we should create a business around our lives, not build a business that we have to then figure out our lifestyle later. We want to put our life first, business second, because that is where the true freedom comes in. So if that sounds like it resonates with you, make sure you continue listening to the rest of this episode, and let's get into it.
Hi.
Shandni, welcome to the Remote CEO Life podcast.
Hi, Sophie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great.
Amazing. And you're in the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and you've just told me that it is cold over there.
It is cold.
But I guess we're going into winter, right, in Australia, so
Yes.
it makes sense.
Yes.
But otherwise, how's it going over there?
It's great. The sun's still out. It was blue skies. And it is setting now. So it's getting a bit darker and cooler. And yes, otherwise it's great.
Amazing.
I mean, we still get to enjoy the beach even in winter here at the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah,
So I can't
beautiful.
really complain, even though I do say it's cold.
I know, it's funny. We had a little bit of a debate before we started recording. What does cold mean for so many different people? Everyone's got a very different tolerance. But thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I brought you on today to talk a little bit about your journey from leaving your 9 to 5 and finding that courage to start your own online business. Now, I've gone a very similar journey as you in terms of actually plucking up the courage to leave my job and create this whole new life for myself. And I understand that there's so many mindset shifts that you likely had to make and get out of your comfort bubble in so many different ways. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your personal backstory.
Wow, so much in there, isn't it? And obviously, you've said you've been through the same journey. So for me, it was about being in corporate for 19 years. And I think what changed was loved my corporate role. I loved what I was doing till I had my kids. And then a lot changed after that because, once what I enjoyed doing no longer fit the life I had after having my kids. So I had my kids and I would just sit there going, my gosh, I can't imagine doing the 12, 18-hour days that I was putting in at times before having kids, after having them. So I would sit there breastfeeding in the dark, wondering what else was there outside of the corporate 9 to 5. And deep down, I know when I went back after my first child, I was disconnected. I was feeling like I was living someone else's life. And, what a successful life looked like for me and what I thought success was very different pre kids and post kids. And for the longest time, I just, pushed that aside and still showed up to work. I ignored those feelings. I told myself I should be grateful. I should just keep pushing through. I need to be the dependable one. I need to provide for my kids. I was a high achiever. So I had to be that mom that made it all work. However, the truth is, I just couldn't keep pushing that aside and abandoning those feelings. And then eventually that just got louder and louder. The breaking point came when I sat there one night just in tears while I was, sitting there in the dark going, I cannot go back to work again and feel like I'm doing this forever. So I started researching what else I could do, what else was out there. There had to be a different way. And then I basically stumbled across the coaching community and worked with a coach. And after working with my coach, I just went, oh my gosh, there's so much else out there. And I saw the breakthrough that I had. And then I decided this is what I want to do for other women as well. So when I basically started working with my coach, the biggest issue was I was stagnant. I was stuck in the same role that I had been in for the last 5, 6 years. And I just didn't know how to move. And after working with her, I actually got the confidence to apply for different roles, all of them which were promotions. Applied for 5 or 6 roles, and I think I got 4 interviews and got 3 job offers off the 4 interviews I applied for. And then I got to pick the one that I wanted. And I was also able to negotiate it up my pay, even though those jobs were a promotion already. And when I did that, I was just like, okay, I've got my confidence back. I feel like myself again after having kids. I refound my identity. And then I was just like, okay, I need to do this for other women because there is a lot of career coaching that you get offered when you're in the corporate world. However, there's not humor that much of a whole of life coaching as I would describe it. So I decided I would do a life coaching certification. And that's when I jumped into coaching. I started coaching my corporate buddies to start with. And then I quit my 9 to 5. And there's a little bit of story to that, which we can go into in a little bit. However, that's when I actually decided to quit and, yeah, jump into my own coaching business after doing it on the side for a little bit as a side hustle while having my corporate role.
Amazing. And just out of interest, what was your corporate job? What field were you working in?
So I was working in the banking and finance field for 12
Got it.
years.
Amazing. And you mentioned that your version of success no longer aligned with you, right? Like you had
Yeah.
this vision of what you thought success was for you and probably for other people. What did that look like back then? And what does that look like now?
Ugh, love this question. Back then, success to me was ticking all the boxes, getting the promotions, having the high profile job, having the career, having, the status and working in corporate, having the mom that had it all together, who was providing for her kids. And that to me was success. And that was success on the outside, right? What other people saw. However, right now, when I look at success, to me, it's all about, can I be there for my kids? Can I still run a business and make enough money without having to sacrifice the freedom and the flexibility that I have with my kids and the time I get to spend with them and my husband? And success looks like going on an overseas holiday once a year without having to take permission from anyone to, like, take that time off to travel with my kids and my family.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting in that, because yeah, you don't want to be asking permission for these things, right? And it's like there's so many, when you're in that corporate world, there's so many things that you don't even realize that you're missing out on, I guess. Like those little moments where it's like, okay, I just want to be able to take my kids to school. I just want to be able to take my kids on holiday whenever I want to go on holiday, that kind of thing. And I'm sure there's other caveats and things that you have to take in consideration, but this life where you've got your own business does give you that extra level of flexibility.
Exactly. And right now we're on school holidays here in Australia. And basically, what I've done is moved all of my podcast interviews, all my clients, all of the rest to after 5, 6, 7 in the evening, so that then I've got the whole day with the kids to do what I want to with them during their school holidays. And then when we're home after dinner, that's when I can then start working. And it makes it great because I've built that flexibility into my business, and I do work with international clients as well. So it works for them. I work with other mums, that works for them as well, because everyone's then winding down in the evening, and it's just perfect the way I'm allowed for the flexibility to be built into my business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, obviously, you went through almost like a second lease of life in your 9 to 5, like where you shifted into that, but then obviously you decided to ultimately leave that and take on your coaching career. Talk me through that kind of breaking point that led you to making that decision.
So like I said, I got my promotion, negotiated up my payout, just like, woohoo, this is great. However, it was still like, working in the corporate job. It was still the 9 to 5. It was still in the box. And then they we went through a restructure at work, and I actually got made redundant as part of the restructure. And that sort of hit me hard. I was just like, oh, hang on, they can just let me go when it's up to them, and I have no control over this and no control over whether I would like to stay on or not. However, I was still lucky. Even though my role got made redundant, I still got retained another role because they reached out to me and asked me if I could do something else for them. However, when I stepped into that second role that I was filling in for someone else's maternity leave, I really started having a, you know, deep consideration about what I'm actually doing here. And is this what I really want? Because the coaching was a side hustle at the time. And I was just, coaching a few people in the evenings, and they were through my work. And I was like, I really want to make this a business. And that's when inner calling coaching was born, when I decided I'm actually going to quit work. So it took me 12 months to actually negotiate a redundancy payout with my corporate career. And then I got paid out for 12 years of working with them, which was really great. And
Wow.
then
Well,
really,
12 years of
oh,
payout.
I was, no, 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 sorry. So I was with them for 12 years. So I got a redundancy
I was
payout.
like,
Like,
wow, you
I
did some good
wish that would be
negotiations
great.
there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I know I'm good, not that good. It was close to 18 months of basically my corporate salary that I got paid out as a redundancy, which was great because then that helped me set up the business. And that was basically my safety net to go, okay, I'm going to make sure I make this work in whatever way I can over the next 18 months so that I've got that buffer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that often people get stuck on, right? It's like, I want to leave. I don't want to be in this 9 to 5 anymore. It's sucking all my
Right.
energy. Or maybe getting to the point where, they felt like you and you're like, this doesn't feel aligned with the lifestyle that I am now living. And like, you're in a different season of life. So the job that was working for you before no longer is. And that's part and parcel of life. We go through seasons and we go through different times in our life where things are going to work, things aren't going to work for us. And we have to make conscious decisions in those moments of like, how are we going to move this forward into our next season and make it feel more supported? And I think so many people get stuck in this box and this 9 to 5 bubble because they don't really see a way out of that, and or maybe don't have the
Mhm.
confidence or understand like what they could do until they're expanded into that world of saying, oh, I could do what she's doing, or I could do what he's doing, or whatever. It's very difficult to see a way out. And then the barrier that then comes is all but money. Like that's always going to be a barrier, right? If you don't have that financial security. And I think there's so many ways around that. And I would never, ever suggest someone to go and quit their job if they didn't have that backup option or some kind of safety net plan in place, because it just doesn't make any sense. But there are things obviously that you can do. Obviously in your case, well, unfortunately because you got made redundant, but also fortunately because you were moving into this new phase, you had that cushion of like a year's pay,
Absolutely.
18 months of pay, which is incredible. Like gives you so much flexibility to go and start a business that might take you 6 months, and then you've got 6 months to test it. And then if for whatever reason at the end of that 6 months you didn't feel comfortable then going all in, you could maybe pick up a part-time job or whatever until you are comfortable with it. But I think a lot of people don't understand that just because you don't have a savings account in your bank, like there are ways to kind of bring in that safety net, whatever that, it's going to look different for everybody depending on someone's circumstances. But I think you can, if you know that stepping away from your 9 to 5 is something that you want to do, building that safety net is super, super important. So how did that safety net help you in your circumstance?
Absolutely. So with me, like when I stepped away, I knew I had that. So I wasn't coming from a place of lack and a place of desperation in terms of, oh my gosh, this is make or break. And I also went
Yeah.
in with the mindset of, I didn't let my ego get in the way, where I just went, if this doesn't work in 12 months or 18 months, I'm okay to go back to work and, get another job. I'd even like discuss this with my previous manager when I was telling him, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to, set this coaching business up. And we had a joke and I was like, I might come back knocking in 12 months. And he's like, we'll happily have you back. So, I sort of had left all my options open. There was no ego coming into play. And just because you've decided something's not working for you, there's no harm in going back and redeciding what that next step should be. And that next step could be, like you said, getting a part time job. It could be downsizing your home. It could be selling all of the unwanted stuff that you have. It could be moving country and living in a place that's cheaper to, then start your business and run it. So there's multiple ways to do it to make sure that you are feeling secure financially and backed. And also, I'm very blessed because my husband also has a job. So it wasn't, you know, like we were going to be on the streets because he is also pulling in an income. And that is also another backup and a safety net that I have too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think exactly what you said, there's always going to be an option, right? Like people use it as an excuse, but actually that's just an excuse to stop you from starting. And if you have a will, there is a way, essentially, is my motto in life.
I
Like
always like, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay, carry on. Yeah,
My question is always, how can I? If there's
exactly.
something you want to do, how can you do it? And when you start asking that question, how can I? Because I work a lot with the subconscious mind as well. Your mind loves providing you with answers and solutions to your problems. So the more you ask, how can I? The more your brain and mind is going to find ways and solutions on how you can make it work if that is what you really want to do.
Absolutely. Like 100%. I think we get so stuck in the narratives, like the old narratives, and sometimes struggle to come out of them. But if, like you just said, like if you can visualize it for you and you can reprogram those subconscious things that you need to reprogram, like there is definitely so many options for you. But obviously when you pivot from like a 9 to 5 corporate life and go into entrepreneurship, that doesn't just come with like the financial pressures for somebody. It also comes with all of these mental pressures. And I know for myself there was this whole internal dialogue of like guilt, shame, pressure, like all of these like inner voices that were like, well, what is your ex-boss going to think of this? Or like, what do your friends think of you? You're doing something so different to them, da 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 da, like a million and one thoughts. How did you shift out of that? Is that something you experienced first of all? Which I'm just going to assume yes, because I think most people do. But then how did you overcome it?
Absolutely. To me, yes, there was definitely the guilt around, oh my gosh, I'm quitting my six-figure corporate salary career to then go down to making nothing. And then there was all of the limiting beliefs that came up, right? What if no one wants to work with me? What if it fails miserably? How am I going to put myself out there? There was a how am I going to do all of this? And that just keeps you this frozen for a while. However, what I did was I actually went and got NLP training. So I'm also an NLP practitioner, and NLP is neuro linguistic programming for those that don't actually know what it is. And it's about working with the mind and your belief systems and your language, all integrating and tying all of that together to then create an outcome and a goal and how you can work towards that. So my NLP training really, really helped me with that. So, and then I did a practitioner training, went to become a master practitioner in neuro linguistic programming. And that's when all of the shifts started to happen. That's when, I worked through, I had tools, techniques I could use to like release all the guilt, all the fear, all the shame, all the pressure, all the limiting beliefs to then go after this big goal that I've set for myself, and I'm not there yet. So it's still a work in progress till I hit that.
I think it's always going to be a work in progress, because even when you
Always.
hit that goal, there's going to be a new goal, right? And it's like up leveling again. But it's great that you have those tools. I mean, I'm not qualified in NLP by any means, but I've done a lot of that work and a lot of the subconscious pre-programming work. So I fully understand what you mean. And I don't think I would have been able to do so many of the things that I have done in my life and in my business, in my relationships, that I have done had I not of reprogrammed some of those beliefs and thoughts.
100%. And like, if someone's thinking of what other questions that I can ask myself to really get over this is, you've got all of your limitations, you've got your fear, your pressure, your guilt, your everything that comes up. And I think there's three key questions people can ask themselves. It's, what am I really afraid of losing? Whose permission am I still waiting for to do the thing that I want to do? And what if it's safe to choose what lights me up? And
Excellent.
really answer that for yourself. And that'll help you rewire your old beliefs as well.
Definitely. It's all about reflection, right? Like, an
Mm.
NLP is definitely all about like diving deep into like your inner being, and understanding yourself first of all, like figuring out like what is actually holding you back, because some people aren't self-aware enough to know that, and then figuring out exactly what you say, like diving into those deeper questions and trying to figure out like, well, how can you shift through these thoughts? How can you shift through these mindsets and beliefs that are holding you back and move you into the next phase of life that you so desperately want to be in, but all of these things are holding you back?
And fear's always going to show up, right? Regardless of what you do. It's
Hmm.
always going to be there. So it's about, how do you then lean into that fear? Know that it's there. And the reason the fear is there is because whatever you're doing means so much to you. Because if it didn't mean anything, the fear wouldn't be there at all. You would just be like, oh, whatever, I'll just go for it and see what happens. However, the fear is there to remind you about how important this next step is for you. So it's all about, yes, there's fear, lean into it, still take whatever the smallest step is to like make that action and that goal a reality, because action and momentum is where the courage builds up. And then fear is always going to be there. However, it's about moving forward in spite of the fear or with the fear.
Yeah, I agree. So it sounds like you had all of the good mindset tools and the mindset stuff to help you shift into this career move. But you also mentioned that you had all of these questions around the how. So what did you do to figure out the how part? Because obviously there is an element of, yeah, shifting through it in your own internal narrative, but there's also practical steps, right, that need to be taken, practical actions that you have to take. It goes hand in hand. So how did you learn how to take the practical action steps?
So there was obviously a point in time when I was figuring all of this out. I just went in this crazy loop in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? How can I do this? I don't know if I'm worth it. I don't know if I'm capable. I don't know if I'm going to make it work. How am I going to bring in the clients? How am I going to do this? However, what I did was, and a tool I used was, I did something called a how clearing. And a how clearing is basically just sitting there and writing down all of the hows that come up. You don't have to have the answers to that. However, it's out of your head onto paper. And then that just clears so much in your head, because once it's there, it's just about just free flowing and writing it out and going, how do I do this? How do I? And the answers don't need to be there. However, you will find them. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to take the first step that you see in front of you And then the next step will just become clear. And then it's just one step after another. And it's just basically about learning how to walk, right?
I love that you just given us a really clear practical step that we can take. And you also gave one earlier also around like the prompts to question yourself and dive deeper. So you're giving us some really great nuggets of information of how we can use some of these NLP practices in our lives, in our businesses, in our goal settings, everything. But I know you've got a free tool called Overcoming Limiting Beliefs. It's a guide that listeners can tune into, I believe. Is there something that you can recommend from that somebody that's sitting there thinking, I want to break free from my 9 to 5. I have a bit of a safety net. I have all of the perfect circumstances to take the action, but they're just still holding back. And it's probably a subconscious belief that's holding them back still. What is the first thing that somebody
Mhm.
needs to do to overcome those limiting beliefs and start moving towards that life that they want and the freedom that they desire?
So I think the first thing people need to do is identify what their limiting beliefs are. So that, yeah, and I think I kind of mentioned this in the first questions that I asked earlier as well, in terms of what are you afraid of? What permission do you still need? What is safe? What is it that's really stopping you from doing the thing that you want to do? So I think awareness is the key. So once you know what your limiting belief is, then you can figure out, where did this come from? Is there any evidence to actually support this limiting belief? Or is this something that I'm making up in my head? And once you've identified whether it's true or false, because 90% of the problems we make up are not real. So
Makes sense.
it's so it's all in your head. And once you've got it all out, you've identified what it is, you're aware of it. It's then about working through that and saying, where is this coming from? Is this really real? And what do I need to do? And what's one small step I can take today to actually do the thing I want to do?
I fully back everything you're saying. Like I say, I have done some of these practices myself, and I would say there's a membership that I'm part of, and all part of that is actually a manifestation membership, right? But as part of that, the whole concept that she lives by for manifestation is that you have to reprogram your limiting beliefs and tap into the NLP practices in order for you to actually get your manifestations. It's not just about like thinking and dreaming and writing down, vision boarding and taking action towards it. If you don't believe it to be possible for yourself, you're not getting it, right? So I've done this work probably for like 3.5 years at this point. So I'm quite deep into the things that you're talking about. Like it resonates fully with me. And before that, I'd already started my business. So I hadn't actually done any of this work like when I was first starting, but I was conscious of the things that were potentially holding me back because I had also done cognitive behavioral therapy, which in some cases there's a lot of crossover, right? Like in the things that you're talking about in terms of like finding evidence to and for and against. So like those practices I had already done. So I was already somewhat self-aware, but not as self-aware as maybe I could have been. And like since I've started doing the NLP work, I'm so self-aware. Like I would say, like I'm out of most people I meet, I would say that I have a very high degree of self-awareness around like exactly what is holding me back. But it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because I can fix those things, but it's also a curse because I'm like, oh God, another thing I need to work on.
No, because it's never fully done, right? And like, this is
Yeah.
something I heard from someone. Like, that is the reason why it's called personal development, not personal done.
Yeah.
You're
It's
just
true.
constantly like evolving, you're constantly developing, and you're never really truly done with any of your development, whether it's in life, business, relationship, kids, whatever it is that you're you're getting involved with.
No.
NLP can be used across the board to clear your limiting beliefs in each phase and stage and area of your life as well. And another one I really like to use with my clients is flipping the script. So when you sit there and go, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough, it's about stopping and going, yes, find the evidence to back that up. Most times there isn't any. And if you do find it, it's about then flipping the script to go, okay, I don't know this yet and I'm not good enough yet. However, I am learning and I'm growing and I'm developing into getting the skills I need to get there. Also reminding yourself that everyone started from the bottom.
I had to really go through recently because I started learning, well, not recently actually. I started learning Spanish like 2 years ago, and I'd
Yeah.
always be like, "I'm so bad at Spanish." And like my ex was Spanish, and a Spanish speaker, and he was like, "Sophie, you're not bad at Spanish. You're just a beginner. Like you're like a baby. Like you're just learning." And yes, so I was like, "Oh, that's a really good shift," because up until that point, like, whenever I decided to start something new, I was like, "Oh, I'm bad at it," and it's like, "No, you're not bad at it, you just need to
Yeah.
learn how to do it." That's it,
Yeah.
it's basic rule of life.
Yeah. And going with that beginner's mindset, right? Know that you're going to be really shit at it to start with. Everyone's shit to start with in terms of
Yeah,
whatever they start. And then it's all about, developing the skills, practicing, making it, refining it, doing the thing. And as you do it more and more and more, it just gets easier to get it done. It's like a baby walking. And I know a lot of people use that analogy in terms of,
yeah,
the baby
definitely.
doesn't get up and like take one step and fall down and go, "Oh, I'm shit at this walking stuff. I'm never going to do it again." They
No,
don't do that. They get
absolutely.
up and keep trying
Keep
and keep
going.
going.
And practice does make perfect, right? In all cases.
100%. And also, it's not failure till you actually stop trying to do the thing.
Same thing,
It is
absolutely.
only failure once you quit and you've given up.
Exactly. I fully agree with you. It's funny, since I've been living here in Thailand, I've really picked up the game paddle. And when I first started, again, I was like, I'm crap at this. Like, I don't know how to play paddle. And to test myself, I entered into a tournament. And I've literally, at this point, played 4 paddle games. Like, I really have no technique. I don't know what I'm doing. I've played racket sports really in my life. But I enter into this tournament, and the first game, what I very quickly realized is that even though it says beginner tournament, all of these are not beginners. They're advanced beginners if they're beginners. But I'm sat there and I'm like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? Like all of these people have clearly been playing paddle for a long time. They had the outfit, their own racket, like all of this stuff. And I rock up to my first game and I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible. Like because I'm nervous because I know that everybody else and knows exactly what they're doing. But two, I'm just like, I know that I'm not qualified to be here. Like this is actually like terrifying. So like obviously when you don't believe in yourself, you start like not basically performing as if you don't believe the way that your self-belief thinks that you should be performing. So I started off like a terrible game. I then obviously in the tournament you play 8 games and I carry on playing, and as I get going and like depending on who I'm playing with, I'm getting slightly better every single time. And I'm like, okay, like I start having a little bit of extra self-belief, which makes me even more determined to do it. And it's almost like I'm reprogramming my self-belief as I go around this court, as I play each game. And it was so funny. I came last in the tournament, which was obviously expected. However, the guy that I played with first, like, because you change partners on every game. And the guy that I played with first, he made a point of coming up to me after the game, and he was like, "Sophie, when you first started, I thought you had no hope." It was like, you were really bad. Like you were playing terribly. You've got no technique, whatever. He was like, but I've watched you play all of your games, and I can honestly say you have like improved so much because I could see that your confidence was building and your self-belief was building the whole way through. And then finally it feels like you've kind of got into it and you're learning exactly what you need to be doing. And I could see the growth in you through that period of time. And it's just like purely out of I could have left the court, right, and been like, no, this is just like too much. This is so embarrassing. I can't play against these people. But I just chose to go, and I actually learned so much from all of these people. And I think there's 2 things there. It's like, one, I got expanded into players that were playing really well. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, let me see if I can keep up. And 2, I just pushed through my own limiting beliefs because internally I was like, oh my God, you can't do this. What are you doing? But I just kept going. So I think there's so many examples we can use in our day-to-day lives and then transfer how we've got through those, even just like silly little things like that, like in our businesses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to always say, like, look at failure as feedback. And if you want to do
Definitely.
something, fail fast at it. So, for example, if I told you, hey, Sophie, if you play 50 games of paddle, you're going to be world number 1 in paddle. How fast would you get through those 50 games?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
knew. So you would fail 50 times knowing that you would then get to world number 1. So
Yeah.
I love using that and looking at that going, okay, the more I fail, the more feedback I'm getting, the more I can improve, the better I'm going to get. And then I'm finally going to do the thing that I want to do and be where I want to be.
Absolutely. Failure is just part and parcel of
Mm.
the process, right? Like it literally is. You only really learn from failures, because if you're constantly on a run, on a win, like what are you actually learning? Like, yeah, you can see what works, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you in a year's time, 2 years time. Like the life and business changes so quickly that you have to go through some failures to really get clear on, like, one, what you want, what you don't want, and how to do it next time. So I fully believe that as well.
Yeah.
Like failure would
It's about
definitely is
failing
feedback.
forward, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
using it to motivate you going forward. Like you don't fail and
Yes.
then be like, oh, I can't do this, so let me take 10 steps back. It's like, no, I've learned all of these things from my failure, so I'm going to use that to move myself forward. That's how you use failure. And
Absolutely.
it's such a big thing in my life that I'm like, I failed so many times, like countless times, in so many different ways, so many different aspects of my life. But every single time I look back, and thanks to quite a lot of the practices that I have from neuro reprogramming perspective, I can
Yeah.
really analyze them and understand exactly what I need to be, to not let it get into that narrative that could get into my head of being like, well, you can't do this, you're not good at this. It's like, well, no, okay, let's understand it. What did I need in that moment in time? What can I do differently next time? All of these things, and move forward and hopefully fail better next time.
Absolutely.
So good. Well, thank you so much. That was super, super insightful on everything we need to know about kind of reprogramming our limiting beliefs to actually move us forward in business and in life. I would love to know something that I ask everybody that comes on is around freedom, because it is a really big value of myself and why I started my own online business, why I help other people start online business to help them gain more freedom in their life. I would love to
Yeah.
know what freedom means to you, and if you could help us see, what did freedom look like for you before you quit your job, and what does freedom look like now you have your coaching business?
To me, freedom is, and I think I've kind of just like said this earlier, however, freedom to me is being able to do what I want when I want in a way that I want to now, and be able to have that time and flexibility spent with my family and my friends and doing the things I love doing. And also building my business around my life rather than the other way around. So in the corporate world, when I was working in corporate, I had to build my life around my business and my work. And that didn't feel free. And that wasn't freedom to me. So to me, freedom is having that flexibility to do all of the things that I love to do and then build my business around that, because then that also makes it so much more enjoyable, so much more fun. And when I am working in my business, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. Like this is still business for me and this is still work for me. And I'm loving this conversation with you.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I fully, fully agree. It's like build a business around your life. Like that is my whole concept. Everything that I teach in all of the things that I do now, it is very much like build a business that works for life, because you can build a business and focus it on your financial goals or your success goals, whatever that looks like for you. But ultimately, if it doesn't work for the lifestyle you want to live and lead, it's not going to work. Like you're going to end up a year, 2 years down the line resenting what you do, probably as much as you resented your 9 to 5. So it really is important to build a business that works for their lifestyle, particularly as you said, you kind of went through different phases, like before and after you had children. And, life changes when you have kids. Like that's just a
Please.
fact. And
I can't even
it's
fathom the freedom pre-kids. So there was a lot more, and I didn't appreciate how free I was till I had my kids. And I love having kids, and there is still a different type of freedom that you have with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really nice that you've been able to come kind of and create that for yourself. So go you. Really happy to hear your story, and thank you so much for sharing it. If anybody wants to connect with you and maybe get hold of your free download around limiting beliefs, how can they get in touch with you?
They can just hop onto my website, and my website is called Inner Calling Coaching. So it's www.innercallingcoaching.com. And there's just a button they can click on the website to download that free guide to support them through this. And of course, I'm on
Beautiful.
all the socials, which is Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all under Inner Calling Coaching as well.
Amazing. Sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing that and everything that you've shared in today's episode. I really appreciate your time and looking forward to going and reprogram even more of my thoughts off the back of this conversation.